Greetings, everyone. Today is Monday, March 15th, and here is today's Monday Morning Minute. We'll start off by briefly recapping last week's discussion on Spires Chapter 2, which dealt with asking compelling questions. Then we'll look at this week's reading, which is Chapter 3, Gathering and Analyzing Sources. I then want to talk about critical response number 4 and what I'd like you all to do for that, and then just a couple course notes specifically about our optional synchronous class this Tuesday. So this was so much fun, and I hope that you all had fun in your small group discussions. Wow, such fabulous questions were being asked by all of you. And I left some feedback here and there, and I'll give you more feedback, everybody, more feedback when I grade your critical response number 3 early this week. But just to give you a sense of like kind of the breadth and the beauty of these questions that we're asking, I wanted to share a couple responses. So first, this is what Randy wrote. Another compelling question that could be used with conditional probability is, what is the correlation between race and school suspension? With this, students can do a survey of the other students at the school, find data online about the school district itself, or use national or state data to come up with a conclusion. Because there is a linkage between school suspension and race, students will be able to research on their own how likely a student is to be suspended for a minor altercation based on their race. Since this is an important topic, I think it would be beneficial to work with history and ELA teachers to ensure students have a full understanding of what is being discussed. Absolutely. I loved this question both because it gets at the social justice heart of our work, but also, as Randy points out, this naturally can spill into other content areas. And so that's a tip that I would give to all of you, especially as you're thinking about the feasibility of implementing the project-based inquiry unit that you are developing in this class. It doesn't necessarily have to be just within your class, right? Look to English teachers who might want to get involved, social studies teachers, science teachers, math teachers, etc. Because when we start digging often, we can find connections between all of the content areas, even if the question itself seems initially to be embedded within one of them. So yes, please partner, blur those boundaries among content areas for sure. And then Katie, who is ELA, wrote, I was inspired to use Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb, to have a current and relatable topic that relates to equity and demonstrates someone being brave enough to talk about it on a national stage. Here's some questions I'm considering. What does equity mean to you? How can we use Amanda Gorman's poem, The Hill We Climb, to find ways to value everyone's culture in the school? How can we create a school committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man, which is a line from Gorman. Excellent. How could you create a school that supports and celebrates students from a variety of cultures? And I love this question. This speaks to something else that I saw a lot, which is again, going for relevance based on proximity to students' lives. So here Katie is trying to take these ideas in this powerful poem and then asking students to weigh in on them locally, right? Just at their school level, in their community level. So, and again, I saw that in many projects or many proposed projects. And I just want to encourage that too, right? That builds relevance when it's something that students have experience with, like their schools, like their natural environment. So wonderful work. I'm so excited about where these projects are going. Yeah, it's just fabulous. Really, it was a bucket filler for me, if you are familiar with that strange phrase. Okay, so this week we're reading chapter 3, Gathering and Analyzing Sources. This is sort of the third part, right? Well, maybe technically the second. I don't know. It's chapter 3, but it's an early part of the project-based inquiry process, right? So once we have this compelling question, how do we ensure that our students have the skills to be able to collect high quality sources and then to analyze them effectively? So this chapter is a lot about close reading, which applies to all of our content areas, and it'll look differently, and they go through that in the chapter itself. But they talk about misinformation or just low quality sources. And so within the chapter itself, they have what they call the CRAP test, which I love. They explain it briefly. I wish they kind of went more into depth about what that might look like, especially across content areas, but I suppose we can infer and we can discuss that. But I also wanted to share with you all another sort of test that we can share with students that will allow them to engage more productively with the sources that they're finding. And that's called the SIFT test. And actually, it was created by our very own Michael Caulfield, who is at Washington State, Vancouver, and was profiled in the New York Times a few weeks back. So I've included a link to that piece that he was profiled in. That's just an optional reading for you. He has a really interesting perspective, I think, in terms of training ourselves and training young people to deal with misinformation. But again, that's available on Canvas. I put it in our modules, and I also updated our course calendars, and it's totally optional, just something else to think about. But for this week, I'm going to ask you once again to kind of take the ideas that they present in this chapter and to actualize them as you move your own project forward. So the steps are as follows. I'd love for you to decide on your compelling question. I know many of us had kind of several that were pretty divergent that we were thinking through. So for the purposes of this class, home in on one, and feel free to refine that question based upon any feedback that you received from critical response number 3, any of your peers. Then I want you to select a relevant text. So something that you could see actually including as part of the unit. So think in terms of age appropriateness, relationship to the compelling question. Ideally, it passes the CRAP test and the SIFT test. This could be, a news article about your topic. It could be, an excerpt. It could be a poem. It could be a chart, potentially, or a table with data. So anyway, a relevant text to your compelling question. And then step 3, I want you to use one of the close reading strategies, and they detail several, and they give you some pointers as well as to what's more appropriate for various content areas. But choose one of those close reading strategies, and I want you to analyze your chosen text. Do it yourself. It might feel, especially for those of us maybe beyond ELA, kind of awkward to kind of engage with the text so closely and so mindfully, but as they point out in the chapter, we need to do it ourselves in order for our students to do it. So use one of those close reading strategies to analyze your chosen text. And then I want you to share the experience with us. So that's kind of number 4 here. What was easy or difficult about this method? Where might students get stuck? How might you provide supports to students to unstick them when they're doing this close reading? Now, I'm going to skip to the next slide, and then we're going to come back to this in just a second. But just a quick course note, remember that we do have that optional synchronous class this Tuesday at 5:45. We'll discuss for about an hour. I'm super excited to connect with whoever is able to show up. Remember that if you do attend that class, your attendance and participation at that synchronous class will count as your critical response number 4. And the other piece, and why I'm going to go back a slide, is because if you are going to join us on Tuesday, and I put this in the email last Friday, but if you are going to join us synchronously, all you need to do are steps 1 and 2. All right? Just decide on your compelling question and find a text. We together, I thought, could, in small groups, try out some of those close reading strategies and then talk about basically answer the questions number 4. What was it like? How did it go? It probably felt maybe awkward for some of us, but again, this is part of the teaching and learning process. So that is all I have for you. Of course, if you have questions, let me know. Everyone take good care. I'm excited to see some of you on Tuesday. Again, zero pressure. If you're not able to attend or it's just not in the cards, you can just complete your critical response number 4 as normal. All right, everyone. Have a great week.